education and our studies moving forward. So welcome everybody. A couple moments for some housekeeping before we launch in. So if you are here to learn about careers that have impact for people and the planet, then you are absolutely in the right place. And today we're focusing on areas that are involved in education and training, which are not the same thing, but they are similar. So I hope that you'll enjoy learning more about that in both the traditional educational setting and also in the rest of the workforce. So one housekeeping item is that we are recording this presentation. And so if you've joined us, you're welcome to control how folks view and interact with you by turning your camera on or off, or renaming yourself, which you can do by hovering over your image. And being able to click on those three little dots, and you can rename yourself as you would like to. And so what we are here today to do is to have a broadened concept of education, and hopefully to also learn about ways that all of you can build your careers around these broadened concepts of education. And we also hope to share with you information that we hope you find interesting about some selected different career tracks that are about these different forms of education and training. And understanding what the career potential is very important to us here at Prescott College when we are designing our programs and designing our curriculum, because we are very focused here on social and environmental justice. And so what we want to make sure that our students are doing after their time with us is implementing everything that they learn in the classroom for the betterment of their own communities and for the planet also. And so that's not going to happen if we don't have a job for you. And so we're always tracking and we're always paying attention. And one of the tools that we have in our toolbox is there's a program that is called MC Burning Glass, and it actually tracks pretty much every single job advert site on the internet. So for example, Indeed and the Glassdoor, for example, and it looks at all the job postings that are being made and also all those resumes that are being submitted. And so helps give a snapshot about how that works. And so we then have that information to help us think about, oh, well, what skill sets do folks need through their education, and how do we do a good job of making that available to folks in the classroom at Prescott College. And not only do we pull from data, but we make every effort to learn from the best of the best. And so we hope to learn what we can from the smartest people in the profession right now. So I would love to let you know who our guests are for today for our panel. And so I have folks alphabetical by first name, and then of course, hosts and hostesses last. So we will, I'd love to introduce you first to Dr. Adama Sallu, who's the Director of Equity and Inclusion at the Chandler Unified School District, among many other hats. So welcome, Dr. Sallu.
Good afternoon. Thanks for having me.
Thank you so much for being here. We're also joined by Garcia, who is the owner of Gemini Consulting, but has a lengthy and really accomplished career experience also. So I hope that you'll be able to share more about your background and experience with us through the course of today. Welcome, GM Garcia.
Thank you so much. I'm really glad to be here.
Thank you. And last but not least, Centae. So Centae Richards has joined us. He's our Associate Dean for Education and Professional Programs at Prescott College and former classroom educator, so street cred. So welcome, Centae.
It's always a pleasure to work with you, Dr. Curry. It's good to see you.
Thank you. So let's talk about the jobs. So, of course, when we think about education, many of us will automatically think about the K through 12 teacher, and it is so important that we do, because that is those 13 years of life and development and socialization, and as well as knowledge and information. And so just to give you a bit of an overview, so let me walk through some of the information that we have to share with you here. So when you see the job title, so a K through 12 teacher, and that is so many different kinds of jobs, so many different subject matter areas and qualifications. So that is not just one thing. We've all been to school, so we know what that is, or at least in this audience we have for those students who are interested in a master's. After the job title, you'll see a % growth number. And so that is speaking to what the projected growth is for that career focal area over the next 10 years, well, 8 years. So through 2030, just so that you have an understanding of where these data are coming from. And 6% growth, just so that you know, that is on par with the expected average growth of occupations in the United States. So it is on par. So it's not an area that is growing more than the rest of the economy is expected to grow. So I wanted you to understand what the baseline is. And then you'll see some additional information that we try to collect from the MC Burning Glass and ONET. And so what you'll see is that we try to get a handle on what percentage of those employed in those areas who've chosen that as a career pathway have a master's degree. And I don't think that you'll be surprised to learn that the majority of our K through 12 educators do have a master's degree or additional post-baccalaureate education. And so this can include an EDS specialty or Ph.D. qualifications. And a lot of those, you need the master's before you can move forward, so they're embedded. So at least 58% hold master's degrees. So you can look at some of these other occupations and get a feel for what those rates are. And then, of course, we want to be very transparent about what the median salaries are. And so that's a question that folks always have is it worth it to me to invest in my education? And as an educator, my answer is always, why, yes. But, we have to show the money. So we have transparency here and want to make sure that you all are seeing how this works out. And please keep in mind that these are median salaries, which means there are folks who are making more and folks who are making less, but we pick median as opposed to average because we think that's more representative of where you might stand. So that is essentially, if you count all of the folks who are earning different incomes, it's exactly that midpoint is the median. So And we also try to provide you with a little bit of information about like, what would I be doing? So what would be expected of me? And so I've tried to pull some of that information as provided by the MC Burning Glass and ONET. And so if we're looking in terms of growth potential, we see that those who are engaged in education outside of the K through 12 education system, they're projecting a little bit more growth than the average growth of careers. And so it's one of those, there's no good news, there's no bad news here. Data are what they are. But as an optimist, I look at this and like to think like, hey, this is great that industry and companies are investing in lifelong learning for their employees by having training and development embedded in their companies, and knowing and understanding that that is important for the success of their employees and actually the happiness of them also. And then as we point out to you, the community health educators, I feel very optimistic that topics like health equity and facilitating access to services, program management skills are all things that they are looking for people with curriculum development skill sets and the ability to create and adapt materials also. And if I'm feeling pessimistic, I think, dang it, why are we having these health issues? But there's also the wellness focus and preventative education lenses that we can put towards this. And so I'd like to point out that, for example, the community health educators, 24% of them hold the master's degrees. And for training and development roles within organizations, which can include things like being an advocate within a company for environmental, social, and governance, helping the company learn about some of the impacts of their business operations on X, Y, and Z. And I think, for example, if you're curious, as I was researching for this presentation, I landed on Eileen Fisher, which is a very, it's a high-end clothing company. But if you look at their career page and you look at what they're pulling out as something they would like to highlight, they strongly highlight education and on-the-job development as well as access to additional services, and they have an ESG mission. And so if you're curious about an example of a company that's investing in the training and development of their employees, that's one, and I'm sure our panel will have other examples. And then I would be remiss in not mentioning the professor role. It's one of those that, most of us, but you can see that not the majority of us in a professor role hold PhDs. Actually, the majority of college educators hold master's degrees or EDS degrees. MBAs are terminal degrees. And what perhaps folks who are joining us may or may not realize is that in college level education, the expectation is that you will have one degree level higher than the students that you are teaching. So that means if you're interested in teaching at the associate's level, then the expectation is in general for a bachelor's degree. If you are interested, and so that's a community college teaching, which is critically important. If you're teaching at the bachelor's level, then that means a master's degree is an appropriate qualification. And if you're teaching at the master's degree level, then check out our PhD in sustainability education program, or another PhD program. And if you're teaching at the PhD level, then PhD is what you got. So I just wanted to point that out, because there is oftentimes a misconception that a PhD must be your terminal degree, but you can have important impact for students, even if a PhD is not something that you're interested in pursuing. And so my intention in sharing this information with you further is that you might find a long list of degrees under each one of these, and you may find yourself asking, well, which degree should I get? And the short answer is, well, what do you want to do? Because the reality is that we can be community health educators in lots of different aspects. So if we're interested at the community health level, well, that's all about sustainable community development, or social justice and community organizing. If there is an environmental health issue that perhaps because of health equity issues, we got to mobilize around. And so, or a food access issue. So teaching, well, what subject are you interested in teaching? Come on over. Or if you have already had a meaningful career and are looking to share that with students at the K through 12 level, well, a master's degree in education is how you can start working on retraining and hoping to pivot and focus all of your gifts, share your gifts with others as a mid-career transition. And in terms of training and development, you can be a subject matter expert, but trust me, as a college professor, that does not mean that you know how to teach. So there's a lot of different ways that you can focus, but I would encourage everybody to learn how to design a curriculum, because that's really about getting your message across. We're all teaching all the time. Like, why are these things that I care about something that you should care about also? So that means I am teaching, I am educating. So what I really want to do now is hand over the mic to the folks who are really in the know. And so over to you, Dr. Richards, and thank you for taking it from here.
Yes, that's my pleasure. Thank you for that excellent preamble about some of the ways in which education degrees and expertise and knowledge can be applied to places and areas of the economy that you didn't even know could be education specific, yet alone be filled by educators. So one of the things that we like to do in education is dispel the myth about how much money you can make in education. There is quite a bit of money to be made outside of K-12. We are in a knowledge-based niche gig economy, if you will, where you are awarded for the amount of skill sets you can accrue over time and leverage in one job or another. So the more skill sets, the more subject matter expertise you can accumulate over time, you can apply that using your curricular expertise that you get with one of those degrees that was mentioned by Robin, and apply them into very innovative, unique opportunities for professional development and for corporate training and educating people outside of K-12, whether that be in the outdoors and in a leadership position, like in outdoor educational leadership, or if there's an after-school opportunity to start a business in education to help service school districts in after-school programming or before-school programming or weekend programming. So I'm Dr. Richards, and I want to introduce first Jim Garcia, who is going to give us a little bit of an overview of some of the things that niches in education that can be translated into skill sets that are needed in the industry and people will pay for in the form of consulting, education, and training and professional development. Then we'll go to, I'll talk about ways to get into that because it's not always apparent. The doors are sometimes invisible that you need to access to be able to get these types of niche positions that are quite lucrative. Where to go, how to get noticed, where do you take your portfolios, if using your subject matter expertise are some of the things we're going to discuss as well, because you're going to need a master's degree and we want to give you an opportunity to broaden your horizons as to how much this degree is going to be worth for you. And then finally, speaking of that, we're going to be talking about some of the networking that you will need to do if you're going to be successful in education outside of the median salaries that we so see advertised, as if that's all educators are, and as some would say. So I'll turn it over to Jim Garcia, who has a plethora of knowledge and expertise in this. Good afternoon. Just want to say, turn it over to you.
Thank you, Dr. Richards, and thank you, Dr. Curry. I want to just emphasize the importance of street cred. When I began my teaching career, it was really simple and straightforward. I just wanted to be a classroom teacher. There's teachers, principals, and students. It's that easy. And what I found was my passion. And so by starting off in the classroom, I assessed the needs and realized there was something that wasn't even on my radar that was my passion for me, that happened to be second language learners. And as you know, in public education, they are there. And so what is it that we do? And I started to explore that question. And along the way, I found so many non-traditional opportunities. It began with the right committee or being on a grade level team and demonstrating some leadership. And so some of those opportunities surprisingly came from the Department of Education. Quite often, the State Department of Education is working on something that involves teacher voice. So oddly enough, I was on a committee that was reviewing assessment items for cultural sensitivity and linguistic barriers. And for me, that was like, oh, stuff that I kind of had thought about, but not really. But you sit down with a bunch of other educators and you're already networking. The jobs that I never dreamed existed, that no one told me about, in Oregon, they call them TOSAs. Teachers on special assignment. It was there that it broke my heart to leave the classroom, so I thought. But once I was in a position that the district creates to support other teachers, I realized there was more passion behind my leadership. Those types of positions often exist through the Elementary Education Secondary Ed Act. ESEA has been around forever. So think the Improving America's Schools Act, No Child Left Behind. Those are all iterations of the same federal mandate we have to close the gap for students of color, linguistic diversity, students with special needs, and students living in poverty. That alone were jobs that I never even dreamed of. So every district has positions that are outside the classroom that may speak to your passion. But it wasn't until I pursued my master's degree that I realized there was something there for me in the way of making a bigger difference and, frankly, making a lot more money than I was in the classroom. And so it began with contracts, special contracts that you can set up with the district when they have a need and you have a skill. And it's not like I came with those skills. I learned them along the way. Dr. Curry mentioned curriculum development. You know what else is out there? Curriculum alignment. So when I realized there's school districts who are bilingual or trilingual or even not bilingual, and the math department's not speaking with the science department who hasn't touched base with the reading curriculum to be able to align curriculum. I learned that as a teacher, just watching somebody else. So fast forward to how did I make a business? Not very well at first. As a fourth year teacher, some friends and I got together and said, man, this stuff is cool. Equity, inclusion, let's make a business. And we did. We filed the paperwork and We had no street cred. We were a bunch of young, optimistic teachers. We didn't have a business plan. We also hadn't assessed what was the need. So that was the late 90s. And fast forward to right before pandemic, actually, a few years, a fellow retired educator approached me and said, you know, there's a lot of online charter schools and they have associations and they do PD, and they never have anything for English as a second language because those kids did not used to show up for this and now they are, etc. need. So there we are. We became the online professional development for teachers teaching online, and boom, pandemic hit. So there is a little bit of being in the right place at the right time, but that was our business model from the get-go. And so life right now is I take jobs that I want. I will not work with a district that does not align with our philosophy. And there are districts that will try and hire you to have a rubber stamp and say, check the box, we did the equity. We have the luxury not to do that. Most of our work is online. So I'm currently residing in Costa Rica and I do volunteer jobs. I do volunteer here in Costa Rica, figuring out the lay of the land, just what's the education system. And last week I landed my first contract with the Escuela Británica, which is the British English school that has the most prestige here. And you know what I'm doing? Book study. Come on, folks. They don't do that here. And so something I did before as a participant, I looked it up. How do you do book study? And I'm going to guide them through a book study. And this is just because I want to, and the pay isn't super great, but I can pay the rent and I can make a living. And so if I were to give you numbers, it would always be in comparison to what a teacher makes at a given time. And so when I started those little contracts with the state departments, I was a teacher making $32,000 a year maybe, and it was $25 an hour. And back then that was a nice little side paycheck. And it just began with thinking outside the box. And so many of you, the students at Prescott, I understand, have careers before going into education. I bumped upon a career education school in a large district that found out that they were not training their teachers in ways that were supporting them. Teachers who had not gone through the traditional education program and they got a temporary license. And so we created curriculum for your journeyman type folks out in the field who might not necessarily be kid-centered or kid-focused preparation in their career. And so it depends on the need out there and listening. And the last thing I want to say that we did when we started our consulting company is listen. So we held focus groups with teachers according to their level. So elementary, middle, and high school. We did the same with principals as well as central office folks. And we simply asked the question, what's going on with the professional development in your district? What's working? What's not? What's the greatest need? By having done that, and every state has a directory of all schools. So we grabbed that directory and figured out who's doing what and pulled together folks. We got the word out there that somebody's asking the question and we got business. But we also felt like we're doing the right thing because I haven't been in the classroom in quite a few years as a teacher. So who do I need to listen to? The people who are living with the whites of their eyes, teachers with boots on the ground. And so that's the story of Gemini. And like I said, we work when we want to. We make a living, but it's a great place to be. But it took 7 years of teaching and a good 11, 12 of administration. And I wouldn't take that back for the world, but I never would have dreamed of some of the things I ended up doing when I started my teaching career. And the last job I ever had that my parents understood was principal of a school. Beyond that, they were just, I don't know, she does something there with a bunch of important people who take care of the kids. But I always say, if I take care of the administrators who can take care of the kids, I'm affecting more families and children than I was with my 20, now 29 children in a classroom. And so that's my story.
Excellent.
Thank you for listening. and
No,
then
that
we
was
share.
fascinating. I've heard it before, and I'm always fascinated by it and by the tenacity. Some of the things that I wanted to point out that GM is talking about that is important for people that are interested in making extra money consulting using your subject area expertise is that you have to assess the need. And if you miss the mark with the need, then you won't be as successful in the trenches. And how do you determine the need? Well, funny that you asked, because at least in the state of Arizona, almost all, I would say 50 states would have a state procurement agency where all of the school districts and government agencies list their bids for consulting work. You would be surprised how much of that consulting work is education related. Lots of curricular work. Dr. Sallu and I met a long time ago through one of these procurement bids that the school district, her school district, was offering. I submitted an application to the state procurement agency, which went to the school district. They liked what I was selling, and they hired me to work with Dr. Sallu in equity and inclusion. So I think it's AZ Procure, I believe, is the procurement government website for Arizona. But if you're in any of these 50 states, there is always a government procurement agency through which all of the school districts and government agencies that want consulting work will post bids, and you can definitely sort out education curriculum and instruction, trauma-informed practices, suicide prevention, you name it, they have it there, because there isn't enough teachers out there to cover the need. So if you're always looking for needs, if you're entrepreneur minded as an educator, check out AZ Procure to see what the needs are and whether or not those needs match your subject area expertise, that you can use your skill sets in education to meet a need in the state. Secondly, one thing that we should be focused on as well is places under rocks that educators live that you would not know that an educator is under there, such as, I don't know, Dow Chemical, or let's say another one, True Value Hardware, or I shouldn't be naming names, I should be name dropping, but none of those are endorsements. But I will say that all of them have cultures, all of them have corporate culture. And whenever you get hired, usually at a Fortune 500 company with lots and lots of employees, you will be trained on your job. You will be trained on corporate culture. And sometimes you have to pass a corporate training test to study yourself approved to keep your job after a certain amount of time. All of those positions are run by educators. Educators, they're looking for curriculum, specifically curriculum and instruction or curricular design type of scenario degrees through which they can hire someone to create a curriculum that will teach their employees about their corporate culture. So, and those, depending on how high you go, some of the things are corporate, learn how to be a customer service representative on the telephone and represent us on the telephone, all the way up to quality assurance and compliance, where certain corporations can't exist without complying with state and government regulations. And these people are there with their curriculum and instruction degrees to help keep quality assurance and assess the quality of the corporation or whatever the type of governance and oversight that they're being subjected to by a state entity or a federal entity. All of those places are places where an education degree is going to be the make or break. If someone has a business degree and someone else has an education degree, and you're looking at a quality assurance job, it's going to go to the education degree.
Mm-hmm.
And quality assurance is not I would say, not going to keep anyone in the poverty house in terms of salary. We can look and see what a quality assurance individual makes. I'm sure Dr. Curry has some of that at her fingertips that we can look up later perhaps, but these quality assurance specialists are usually at the top. They're manager, administrator positions, and they can very well be six-figure salaries attached to them, depending on the level of the Fortune 500 company. So I wanted to also say, education is kind of, everybody knows everybody. Everybody is a collaborator with everyone else. Word gets around when you're successful. Word gets around when you're not successful, or when your service and your level of working with individuals are anything less than subpar. And no one really knows the amount of networking and the amount of, dividends that networking can pay, more than Dr. Sallu, who is, in my opinion, the networking queen of this state, and really can give us some pointers on how to keep, to what degree does this networking and collaboration play a role in finding those niche positions in education and keeping them, irrespective of what degree you have. Is that right?
Yes, yes. And I think that's a nice segue, Centae. I really have enjoyed this afternoon, this past hour. Dr. Curry, thank you. GL, I'm like, wow, I was just leaning in. I'm like, we need to chat. And Centae, just a nice segue into this idea of branding yourself, right? How do you set yourself apart? And I think my GM spoke about this idea of knowing, have your depth of knowledge. What do you know? You have to be fluid in your own area of expertise. Is it curriculum? Is it equity and inclusion? Is it ALA? You need to be really fluid and have a depth of knowledge of the industry. Where do you want to go? Have you done your research? What's the need? What's the gap in your community? So what's in your community? Where do you live? So really seeking the basic knowledge, but critical knowledge, and those are what I call foundational knowledge, right? What's in the community? What's the need? And what do you have to offer? What's your knowledge base? What's your depth of knowledge? And so you want to really have an area of focus, and you need to have ideas, right? For example, I'm in education. I need to know about education, not only about Arizona, but from New York State and Texas and California, right? I need to have that micro and macro understanding of teaching and learning. You need to really zoom in there and really build that knowledge base, because that's your brand. You want to meet people and just be very fluid in your knowledge and share your knowledge in a very way that's very, very fluid, right? And knowledge that's really related to the industry you want to work in. For example, I'm in school systems, right? I do equity and inclusion work across the country. So I am fluid in that. I bring any topic up about equity and instruction, I'll pick it up. CRT parents, I'll engage them, right? But the knowledge has to be critical. You have to get critical knowledge. You have to be assured of your knowledge. And you really want to, in that knowledge, you want to know about theory and practice. Educators, right? You don't want to just speak in a benign way, right? But have a depth of knowledge where you're going to take the theory and practice and integrate it together. You can speak to teachers with authority. You're a consultant, right? When you're on your own, you want to speak with authority. So theory and knowledge, what's the latest research? Who are the authors out there? Who are the scholars out there? Who are the scholars out there writing and researching, right? We heard about Goldie Mohammed. Goldie is a new person out there, right? Karen Howard, that's the person out there. Who are these folks in the area of education? What do you research? You know who they are, right? So really build your knowledge and your practice base. And also conferences. You must really be a professional and go to conferences, attend conferences, go seek learning. Yes, you're a consultant, but that's not enough. Go learn. There's always new learning occurring for you. Build your capacity. Go to attend conferences, meet people there, engage people there. You never know. I was at the conference in Phoenix many months ago in Scottsdale, actually. I met a young lady there. She was at Phoenix Elementary School District. Before I knew it, I had a contract to Phoenix Elementary School District. And while I was there, I pulled in Centae. Hey, Centae, want to do, right? So again, you want to be at conferences talking to people, engaging people. And then when you're presenting again, be fluid in your knowledge base. Show that you have authority. Show that you know what you're talking about. Be authentic. Be authentic. You're a consultant. You can speak without really holding back. Speak in a way that you know your craft, right? Because teaching and learning is about knowing your craft, right? So again, go to these conferences and be authentic. Speak with authority that's grounded in knowledge, right? Personal knowledge of yourself, cultural knowledge, right? Professional knowledge, historical knowledge, right? I was talking to some students the other day about Native Americans, and I asked some of them, have you gone to the Heart Museum in Arizona? What's that? Well, you want to work with Native people, but you don't know anything about Native people, right? So just seek knowledge. What's the history of education? Where do we have these gaps? What's going on? I know GM talked about the AL kids, right? But what's going on here in Arizona? What are the laws impacting AL kids, right? And we call them second language learners, right? No, right? You need to know the history. You need to know the cultural history. Sometimes it's uncomfortable, but you must know it and sit with that discomfort. So you need to know, you need to know. And you have to be authentic. And the way that you're not afraid of any situation that comes up, because you're authentic in yourself, you know your knowledge, you know your skills that you have, you can engage anybody from the boardroom to classroom teachers, right? You're fluid in your knowledge, and you want to present as authentic as real connect to you. So when you have that theory and practice, you can bring it to teachers, you can bring it to anybody. Say, oh, when you have this, you have that. Lately, I was engaged with some superintendent of schools on this idea of technical solutions and cultural solutions in schools. Often in schools, we lean towards the technical spaces of learning, right? We think that's all, but that's needed. Without the cultural solutions, we can't do anything with kids. I can't engage my kids. I have my biases against brown kids. I can't teach them. Those are cultural solutions, right? And so somebody asked me, Adama, what's the technical solutions? So then I have to break it down what I meant, right? I have to break it down. It means talking about mathematics, strategies teaching math, right? Strategies teaching ALA. Again, that's critical, don't get me wrong. But again, I can have that technical skill set as a teacher, but I have the cultural skill set to know my children, know them well, build relationship with them, know their cultural essence, know their cultural stories, know their racial stories. And we can talk about race. That's not political, right? And so like I can talk about race in class, teaching Black and brown kids and the equity society. That's not politics. But school is actually political if you ask me. Because in schools in America, we put parents in jail. Your kids don't come to school, we call the cops on you, right? Schools were created for a democratic society. That's why the National Guard led Ruby Bridges to school in New Orleans in the 1960s, right? Because schools are political. It's a political space. We are paid by the government to come and teach children, right? It's political. So we can talk about politics, we talk about race. Really? You can't? No, maybe don't be partisan. That's the difference, right? And so knowing that language, oh, what we do politics? But when the kids come to school, K through, well, first through 12th grade, we make them come to school. We hold parents accountable, right? So they have enough fluidity, having that fluidity, right? Having that fluidity that and then you're coming from that place of authenticity, people tend to examine you and say, oh, okay, well, who is she? Right? And that's the piece. I was doing a presentation for the school board, the Arizona School Board Association, right? And I don't even know what I said. They have my picture all over the state. I'm like, oh, I said that. But again, I was authentic in my space and holding people accountable, right? We are called to serve children, right? We are called to serve children. So again, be authentic as a consultant. Speak with authenticity, know your craft, and even the whole CRT piece that's there, we know it's partisan, it's not really sincere, it's kind of cynical, right? It's not really about teachers, it's cynical, right? But I can engage those parents also in my humanity, in their humanity, right? So again, as a consultant, you have to be authentic and know your craft and be there and be fluid in your learning. Last but not the least, really, is this idea of relationships. It is so critical when we are networking relationships, how we show up in those spaces, right? So you strive to build those relationships each and every single day. You don't know who you're meeting in any given time. right? You have no idea. You have no idea. So what do? You don't know who's going to refer you. I was referred by somebody from my church to the Tucson Unified School District. Told you about me, right? Somebody from church, perhaps I said something to them, referred me. So you don't know who you are talking to anytime. So I believe that you're always networking. Always. If you're your kid's classroom teacher, whether you are a your neighbor's house, the ball game, the football game, the basketball game, you're always networking. So be deliberate in that networking, right? In this professional circle, informal circles, you're always networking. With that, please come to volunteer. Do you volunteer in your community? Are you volunteering in your community? For me, in my community, I'm a CASA volunteer. I'm a CASA, right? I do CASA work and I volunteer at the refugee agency. Do you volunteer? Because those aspects you're gonna go, oh, you do that. What else you do? Right? The Centae, Adama, and everybody in the state of Arizona. I do know everybody in the state of Arizona because I ensure that they meet me, they remember me. They will remember Adama. You can't meet me without remembering me. That doesn't happen. You meet me, you're gonna remember me, not because Adama is special lady, I am special because I have a brand, and that brand is my name, Adama. I'm the only Adama in the state of Arizona, so I said the brand, right? It's Adama. So be deliberate, volunteer to work in your community, serve on school boards, serve on, not school boards, but serve on boards, local boards. I serve on the YMCA board. In that YMCA board I'm serving as a board member for the YMCA board, others invited me. Oh, you do that work? Because the YMCA board, I was asked to lead our own boards. Most boards are serving in Black and brown spaces are all white folk. And how do you make boards very diverse? So I did a whole training, and now other boards invited me to come and speak, and they're paying me money. I get paid, right? They pay me money, right? Or somebody was like, oh, I'm at Luke Air Force Base. I'm a chaplain there at Luke Air Force Base here. You want to come and do work with me? Yes, right? But again, be on that board, right? Just be on the YMCA board. Now I'm on like 2 or 3 boards already. Folks are inviting me to those spaces. And when I go, I meet people. That's networking again, right? Say, oh, you do that. Well, you know, so do that, right? Because I don't golf. So that's what I do, right? So again, networking, right? Networking. And also, if you're networking, don't be selfish. Give others work also. Help others. You know, you can be there and networking. Say, oh, okay, I'm going to take no. No. It's have a friend named Centae. Centae is Adam, and there's this little thing here. Sure, I'll do it. Don't just network for yourself. Network for others also. Share that space. Let people know that you're sharing ideas and knowledge also with other people. That's not all about you, but you want to really create a space that allow others also to prosper, right? You want others to prosper their own careers, right? And that's so people see that about me and say, oh, and they remember that, right? And so you're authentic. That's the part of their branding and networking. You're authentic. You know, you have your knowledge because that's your brand. I mean, you go anywhere in the state of Arizona, from Kathy Hoffman all the way down, Kathy Hoffman, Adama. Oh yeah, we know Adama. She's responsible for something else, right? You go to ASBA school board, Adama. Oh, we know Adama, right? And so you do in a way that people remember you, your brand, and that network is so critical. How you show up every single day, how you see other people, how you serve. In the East Valley, I created the East Valley Equity Consortium for school leaders. So superintendent of schools, directors, they meet once every other month, talking about issues, right? And then there was, oh, you know, we know this person. How can you do that? It's not selfish. I don't need anything. It's just to create a space for others to come. So it's the idea of service. As educators, you want to do this work really in this space of consequences in the educational space. You have to be really deliberate to create those spaces, the informal and informal networking spaces, and be creative. People know you're passionate about your work you're doing, and people remember you. They remember that. And always, again, find a mentor. It's hard work being a consultant. You can do it alone. Now I have GM already. I'm going to connect with GM right here. Find people who are you all that space together. Lean in. Ask for support. Ask for support. Find a mentor also, because you can do it on your own, you know, right? Find a mentor. Like, hey, I'm beginning here, and I'm here, folks. If you need me, hey, no, not that I have time, but I will definitely make time to say, hey, how about this? How about that? Right? Find somebody. Even at Prescott, I'm at Prescott College as an adjunct. I'm a faculty there. I've had a student reach out to me. Hey, Dr. Sallu, hey, this. I'm like, sure, I can be on your committee. Okay, Jay, I can read your dissertation. Oh, I'll be busy. I'll do that, right? But again, just take time to serve other people. Because in serving other people, that others seek you out to help them out. I'm going to stop there. I can talk forever, but this brand itself, and this idea of networking, and this idea of giving back, and this idea of helping others also prosper while you're networking. You don't want to just be a taker. You want to be able to give in that space of the ebb and flow of teaching and learning. But clearly know your craft, know what you're talking about, be well versed, read, read, read. I always have a book. I always have a book. You see me with the book in my bag. I have a book. Just read everything that come across you that build your capacity to have the authority to speak wherever you are. Okay.
Amazing.
That's all.
Exactly. And thank you, Dr. Sallu. I think that, it's something, I hate to wax theoretical here, but there's something quite hermeneutic about that you're saying in terms of coming full circle and giving to get and vice versa.
Yes.
Education is one of those professions that, while it gives you the summers off, it gives you also a big opportunity to collaborate and find the niche that's going to be that's going to make you happy and also fulfill a need. That there's lots of flexibility there. And I just wanted to just say that what we've been discussing this thus far is pretty advanced in lots of ways. But I want to just say that it all starts with the base, whether or not you want to be an after-school program or a program that collaborates with the park districts and for outdoor education, or if you want to be a breakfast education nutrition specialist for the early morning tigers. Or if you want to be an entry-level clerk in the corporation, a Fortune 500 corporation, or if you want to just be a kindergarten, I shouldn't say just, but be a kindergarten teacher as a first year, it's all going to take a small amount of investment of time and energy to build up your knowledge base and be able to reach those heights of greater emotional fulfillment, as well as the deeper, pockets for your efforts. After you decide whichever sector of education, then you can start using that knowledge base that you have acquired over the last, let's just say 3 years or so, to begin to apply to those issues that have been getting on your professional nerves for the past 3 years, and as a consultant. And with the right bells and whistles and also the right connections and the right networks, you will find yourself being able to at least cut your teeth on a contract worth a few $1,000s a pop. And that's not, they can attest to it, both these ladies. We have a couple of minutes. I want to give at least 2 minutes for Dr. Curry to wrap up, but I just want to just say it's been a pleasure this afternoon chit-chatting about my favorite topic, my profession, education. It pays back in spades, even when it's not paying, if you know what I mean. So I'll turn it to GMs. It's been a couple of minutes, and then back to Dr. Sallu to wrap up and make sure that we have at least a couple of minutes for Dr. Curry. Thank you again for inviting me. GM, do you have anything to say? Wrap up?
I just want to thank this whole group in Prescott College for the inspiration. And as always, when you hear somebody as wise as Dr. Sallu, there's a million other things that came to me, but something that she said, I want to reiterate. Whatever it is that is your passion, become not only proficient, but deeply knowledgeable. It is better to have depth than breadth when it comes to expertise.
Yes.
But most importantly, find a mentor, ask for help. One of the best things I've ever done, and it's advice I took from a mentor, whatever you want to do, find somebody who's already doing it or something like it, and become their friend, become their mentee. Figure out, how did you get to where you are from the beginning and learn and volunteer, join associations. There's so many educational associations where not only will you get your heart fulfilled, you will be supported emotionally. And we need that in education, but also it is ours to give back. So when people ask, what do you charge? I answer, it depends. What do I charge principals who are in their first year of principalship and they are women of color? Absolutely nothing. We meet once a month, we cry, we laugh, I just hold space. Why? Because it needs to get done and nobody's offering me money. What do I charge the white parent who wants to learn how to navigate the complaint system? Depends on what they can afford. So anyway, do the work because you love it, follow your passion, but remember there's support out there, and then you also owe that support to those who follow behind us. Thank you so much for this time.
And you're welcome. And one minute, Dr. Sallu, can you fit it in 1 minute?
1 minute. Well, I think GM said it all. She said it all, really. This idea of service, this idea of depth of knowledge. Because consultancy is about breadth, it's about depth. And be comfortable with yourself. And be authentic and know your stuff. Just know it well. And don't forget that you're making an impact, right, in the world. Yeah, we're making the money. Money is good, don't get me wrong. Money is really good, but you want to make an impact in our global space. Make an impact. You're just making an impact in ways that's beyond you, that others come behind you. Like, oh, GM was here, Adam was here, Centae was here, Robin was here. We're here, right? It's that impact you want to make. And once you make the impact, the money will flow to you. And I see my own life. So have depth. Again, I don't want to repeat what GM said, but again, just go and just pursue excellence. Just pursue excellence.
Thank you, Dr. Sallu. And thank you again, Dr. Curry. I'll turn it over to you.
Yeah, thank you. I think it's all been said. We're so honored for all of you for your time today. And I think that all of you have modeled what it is a mentor is. And so my hope for those who joined us here today and for those who will watch the recording is that you view this as your first step towards finding that mentor. And if Prescott College can help you with the next step of solidifying those mentorship relationships and solidifying that knowledge that you heard everybody talk about, then we're here for that. But we also have informational conversations that we're so pleased to have with anybody who gives us a call, because guess what? We're educators and we love to talk about the things that we're passionate about. So the invitation goes out to folks who are watching to connect with us. And whether your interest in education is in outdoor education leadership, or in the counseling side of things at schools, or if it's in social justice and community organizing, because Lord knows we need that around education. There's lots of ways to have impact and use those skill sets in and around education. So thank you so much, GM Garcia, Adama, Sallu, and Centae Richards. Thank you so much for being with us today.
Thanks for having us. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Bye-bye.